Welcome to Oslo, your video collaboration and feedback tool for content creators. Whether you're a solo YouTuber or you work as part of a larger team, Oslo is your central hub to upload video, share projects, and get feedback. All of your media files are securely backed up in the cloud. Simply upload an asset and invite others to collaborate on your project. Our built-in project management and annotation tools make it easy to communicate feedback directly on the video. Oslo allows you to publish to YouTube directly without ever leaving the platform. Simply click Publish, fill out the information, and we'll upload the content as a private video until you're ready to share it with the world. With Oslo, all of the tools you need to collect and review feedback is available in one tool. From timestamped comments to version management, Oslo's powerful features make video collaboration easy for you and your team.
А, вот это лучше. Тебе больше нравится? You like better? Thanks for checking out. Нет, наоборот, нет. Нам типа, я шпион, I'm spy. Chinese spy. Yes. Spying. What is this? Is this what?
Listen to someone function as a press. In Lansing, Michigan. Let's hear their competing visions for this historic American moment.
Over 225,000 people have lost their lives to a virus. Many of those lives lost in the cruelest.
Нет, наверное, нет. Пугать людей, чтобы они ничего не покупали, никуда не ходили, я помню, наоборот.
show for you tonight. Dr. Sanjay Gupta is here, but when we come back, meanwhile, join us, won't you?
Hello, everybody. This is going to be a fairly short video on fingering, not a comprehensive treatment of this question. It's a very big question, but only a couple of ideas that, for me, are guiding principles of how fingering works. Now, before we talk about fingering, have you ever seen an old-timey dance steps chart, like if your grandparents were going to take ballroom dancing or something and they wanted to learn an old-fashioned dance like the Charleston or something, there are these charts that show the steps, and they only show the footprints. They look like this. So just going through a couple of these little dance step charts, see little footprints. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so think about dancing in its relationship to those charts of footprints. How much information do you get about dancing from those footprints? Well, I know that this foot goes here now, and then at some point this foot's going to go here, and then that foot's got to go over there. Doesn't really tell me anything about what my arms are doing, or am I turned this way, or is my weight over here, over there? Am I doing jazz hands, or some kind of motions or something? 70s musical motions. It really is very, very little information about the totality of the human activity of dance when you just look at where the feet are contacting the floor. So I don't really know anything about dancing, but I assume there's a lot more that dancing people have to talk about and teach beyond those charts of footprints. I look at fingerings in music as analogous to those dance step charts. When the score tells me that third finger is on F sharp, well, then I know that it's this right here is going to be in contact with that right there. Just as in the dance step, I know that left foot goes here at this moment. But just as in the dance step, I don't know what is happening in the rest of my body from that dance step. Likewise, from the fingering, I don't know what's happening with the rest of me. Which way is my shoulder moving? Am I rotating this way? Am I coming in this way? Is this all part of a sweep in this direction or that direction? Is this note the last one in a group and then I'm going to let go? Or is it the first one? Or is it in the middle of a group? I really have very, very little information. Like the tire tracks of a car don't tell you much of the life story of the people who are in the car. It only tells you that at this certain moment, that tire was in contact with the ground. And likewise, the score only tells you that at this certain moment, 3 was in contact with F sharp. And if you've watched other videos, especially those on the 4 pillars of piano technique, you know that I'm very interested in the total motion of the whole body. And of course, the finger touching the key is only the very, very end of it. It's like the hood ornament on a truck is the first thing that goes ahead of the truck and cuts through the wind on the highway. But that is not the whole story of what makes a truck go, and it's not where the power comes from. So, in a way, music scores do not tell us how to play the piano. And really think about this. A printed music score is not a set of instructions how to move, how to do the motions of playing the instrument. Rather, it is a diagram of the sound, mostly. It's really a diagram of the sound. So when we go and do fingerings, what I really think is important is to think first about the motions and the groups, and then derive the fingerings from those. So let's look at a couple of examples from obvious to less obvious. We'll start with an obvious one, the Chopin Etude in C, Opus 10, number 1. Let's take a look. Here we are with a cool, old-timey copy of Chopin Etudes. I just love these digitized scores. So anyway, here we are. And what we can see is that there is a very obvious group that the hand sweeps through these first 4 notes, does the same here an octave higher, again an octave higher, again. And there really is no other way to play that than to do it in the group that's given. A little later I'm going to make the claim that you can always redistribute as you want to between the hands, and I've never thought of this before, but you know, you could make this piece incredibly easy if you split all this up between the hands and cheated. The reason I wouldn't do that, in contrast to what I'm going to say later, is that Chopin actually understood that you could gain facility with these kind of crazy wide arpeggios if you learn the right kind of centering and grouping motions, and that actually they're not even that hard. So you really do get something from doing it his way that you don't always get in some composers with the way that they notate things and distribute them between the hands. So as we can see from the score and sort of imagine on the piano, there's really no other possible way to play this except a group of 4 sweeping through, and then another group of 4, and then another group of 4. So there's really no other choice. So this, in a way, is very easy. So therefore, just given the spread of my hand, it has to be 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay, so that's not difficult. It's not an easy piece to play, but it is certainly not difficult to figure out the fingering, because there is no other way to do this but the groups that Chopin is providing. Let's take a look at another example. Magnificent, magnificent. Look at those tiny little dots. What a tidy mind. What a precise mind. Look at that. Anyway, sorry. I just get into stuff like that. So if we go to the coda here, this last arpeggio, we have those 2 notes right there, and then we have D sharp, C sharp, G sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, G sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, and so on. So that is actually the 4-note group. It starts right there. So think of this pair of notes as a little bookend, and then we do that, do it again an octave lower, do it again an octave lower, we got it again an octave lower, one more time, and then just another little bookend that kind of changes things, and we're down there on that A. So here what we have is a 4-note group hidden within what appears to be 6-note rhythmic groups. And so if you are not observing how this fits the hand, you would never notice that it's actually repeating all the way down, because it keeps falling on different beats and doesn't sound like it's repeating, which is the genius of Chopin, to hide something simple, playable, ergonomic within a different meter and make it sound more complex. Okay, let's go to the piano and take a look at this. So the downbeat keeps coming in a different place for my hand.
Tonight, the final week sprint to the election. Joe Biden going the offense, hoping to turn traditionally red Georgia blue. In Florida, Barack Obama scathing new attack on Donald Trump. The president on the trail, trying to defend 3 states he won in 2016 and taking a Supreme Court victory lap. New Justice Amy Coney Barrett officially sworn in today. The coronavirus spreading faster than ever in the U.S., 71,000 cases a day. Tonight, our Across America series brings us to Wisconsin, just as that state breaks its daily record for cases and deaths, and the anger over new crackdown overseas. The disturbing video, police in Philadelphia fatally shooting a black man. They say he had a knife. Violent protests erupting. 30 officers injured. The city braced for more unrest tonight. Massive walls of fire explode in California. Over 90,000 evacuated and firefighters critically injured. Bracing for Zeta, a hurricane warning along the Gulf Coast. Evacuations ordered. The new track. The leader of Nexium, described by prosecutors as a cult-like group, facing his victims in court. And new screening guidelines. A cult-like group facing his victims in court. And new screening guidelines for the same form of cancer Chadwick Boseman battled. What you need to know.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, reporting tonight from Wisconsin.
Good evening from Milwaukee. 7 days to go until the election and day 2 of our journey across America. President Trump briefly here in the state of Wisconsin today, hoping to rekindle some of his 2016 success here, while Joe Biden is also on the trail, looking to redraw the map, venturing into what was once considered solid Republican territory. The clock winding down for both men tonight to secure a path to victory and seal the deal with voters who have not yet cast a ballot. Let's begin with Kristen Welker.
Vice President Joe Biden is closing out his campaign on offense, rallying voters at a pair of events in Georgia, a state Democrats haven't won for president since 1992. Biden holding his first rally in the shadow of Franklin Roosevelt, a small town where FDR healed from polio before ultimately pulling the country out of the Great Depression. Now Biden aiming to cast himself as a president who will bring the country back from the pandemic and economic crisis.
That's the job of a president. A duty of care for everyone. This place, Warm Springs, is a reminder that though broken, each of us can be healed.
He accused Mr. Trump of fostering a climate of division.
I know our people, and I know we can unite and heal this nation.
And while polls show a tight race here in Georgia, some Democrats say this strategy could be risky, arguing Biden should focus on swing states instead of trying to expand the map. Still, top surrogate, former President Obama was in critical Florida today, unleashing his most scathing attack yet against President Trump.
He's turned the White House into a hot zone.
Blaming the president as COVID cases rise in more than 40 states across the country.
He said this at one of his rallies. COVID, 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 he's complaining. He's jealous of COVID's media coverage.
Kristen Welker, NBC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
I'm Jeff Bennett in Omaha, Nebraska. For President Trump, a trio of stops along the campaign trail today.
Now I've got to say, I'm working my ass off.
Hoping his large rallies, in defiance of COVID recommendations, will pay off as he plays defense in the Midwest. First stop, Battleground, Michigan, a state he won by fewer than 11,000 votes in 2016.
7 days from now, we're going to win the great state of Michigan. And we're going to win 4 more years in the White House.
But polls show Joe Biden up by 9 percentage points. And as President Trump's handling of the coronavirus crisis threatens his hold on key states, the president criticizing media coverage of the pandemic.
Just turn on COVID, 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 COVID.
And blaming testing.
We're testing everybody. In many ways, I hate it. But overall, it's good to have the testing. We find out where it is, and there are a lot of things. But they use it to make us look bad. Hello, Wisconsin.
After Michigan, another push in must-win Wisconsin, a state he carried 4 years ago, polls showing it now leaning Democratic. The president touting last night's swearing in of new Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney. Barrett. President Trump's final campaign stop tonight here in reliably red Nebraska. President Trump fighting to keep Joe Biden from winning just one of 5 of the state's electoral college votes. Lester?
Jeff Bennett tonight, thank you. And now across America, tonight as the country adds an astounding 71,000 new COVID cases a day, Wisconsin. Already in the glare of the national political spotlight, suffering some of the worst of the pandemic. Just breaking a single-day record of new COVID cases, 5,262, and deaths, 64. what seems so distant for people here early in the pandemic, now weighing heavily as they go to the polls. These are the critical now. That's 64. What seems so distant for people here. 62. And deaths 64. What seems so distant for people here early in the pandemic, now weighing heavily as they go to the polls. These are the critical Milwaukee suburbs that could determine if President Trump wins Wisconsin again, or if Joe Biden flips it back to blue. Our journey brings us to Wisconsin, not only because it's a swing state and an important part of the path to victory for both men, but also it's a state that's been rocked by two of the major issues of this campaign. The protests for social justice and the violence, plus a frightening surge in COVID cases and hospitalizations.
My symptoms were cough, fever, body ache.
Melissa Armour had COVID last spring, but her breathing problems lingered for weeks. So she went back to the hospital, where doctors made another discovery.
I'm lucky that I survived it, and I'm lucky that I had to go into the hospital when I went into the hospital, because I would have never known I had leukemia.
Thankfully, it was caught early. Melissa is undergoing treatment now, telling us her experience is one reason she's voting for President Trump. Do you think the president has done a good job with COVID?
I think so. I think he's done what he knew what he could do for us.
But Leah Blomberg sees it much differently. She too battled COVID, spending several days on a ventilator. What has it been like to watch what's transpired over the last few months?
Frustrating, for sure. I just don't understand people's aversion to wearing masks.
She told me she voted early for Joe Biden. Do you think that he can turn this around?
I would hope so, with stricter restrictions on wearing masks.
You think Biden will push for mandatory mask wearing?
I would hope so. Altogether, I think he could do a much better job than Trump.
Next door, in battleground Michigan, they're months past their darkest COVID days, but it's still impacting the election.
Almost felt like a bomb went off in our area.
Dr. Sam Falwa spent weeks treating COVID patients. Despite the president's heavily criticized pandemic response, he told us he's giving President Trump the benefit of the doubt and his vote.
I don't think he did everything perfectly, and neither would have anyone else. But I think, and I truly believe, he did things as best as he could, given what he knew at the time.
Mindy Prisky is also voting for the president.
We are in the way of recovering some of the economy, and a lot of people will say a lot quicker than was expected, and I think we need to stay the course with that.
She owns an ice skating company and says her business was devastated by COVID restrictions imposed by Michigan's governor that Mindy thought were unfair.
We could go to the casino, and so if they could be opened at 15%, why couldn't we?
I'm just looking at everything that I worked for 17 years, invested into a business that had to shut down.
Latricia Wilder was also forced to close her fitness studio for weeks, but she told us she's voting for Biden, saying she can't trust President Trump.
I'm a woman, I'm a black woman, I'm a small business. Those three things alone does not seem like it's on his radar.
Then there
things alone does not seem like it's on his radar.
Then there's the flashpoint over race and justice, which is also swaying Americans' votes. Back in Wisconsin, we met Antonio Godfrey Sr.
I have never protested a day in my life, but after watching George Floyd's murder happen, I felt the need, I felt I was angered.
There's Antonio at a protest. His son Noah was right there with him.
It was very emotional. It was. But it was that good emotion. It made me feel warm. The community has started that process of wanting change.
He says he won't vote for President Trump.
He does not have my best interests in mind. He doesn't have the people of color interests in mind.
Arletta Allen, the first black city councilwoman in Fond du Lac, also took part in protests, but takes a different view of the president.
I am going to vote for him, and that's mostly because I'm a Republican, not because of the fact that I'm a Trump supporter.
So what would you say to Donald Trump if he were sitting here right now?
It's up to you, having that position of power, to be able to oversee and push forth the change that the people are looking for.
Great to hear from all those voters. We do wish Melissa the best with her treatment. Meantime, authorities in Italy are bracing for more violence as people protest new COVID crackdowns. Bill Neely is there.
Police fired tear gas overnight as crowds protested tough new rules, curfews, bars and restaurants closing early to try to stop the explosive rise of COVID. Record cases today, hospitals filling fast.
Next weeks will be terrible, I imagine.
In Bergamo, center of the first wave, everyone wears a mask. In this small town, more than 6,000 people died with COVID in just over a month in the spring, the worst death rate in the world. Today, as the virus sweeps in again, people here are terrified.
We are scared of go outside home. We are scared to meet other people.
Nearly everyone here has lost family.
Two parents
4 days. In 4 days in March. It's a very terrible year.
And they fear another terrible toll, history repeating itself. Bill Neely, NBC News, Bergamo.
Protests and violence in Philadelphia after police shot and killed a black man they say was armed with a knife. Almost 100 arrests, 30 officers injured. With more, here's Ron Allen.
Tonight, Philadelphia preparing for more of the anger and rage that spilled onto the streets. At least 91 people arrested, businesses vandalized and looted, police vehicles damaged, following the death of Walter Wallace Jr. Seen on this video, police responding to calls about an armed man, heard telling him to put down a knife before opening fire. Wallace's family says there was a domestic problem and that police were told the 27-year-old father of 4 had mental health issues when they first arrived.
They didn't have to shoot. We need new laws. We need them to be trained differently.
The officers who used deadly force against Wallace did not have tasers, the commissioner citing budget constraints.
These officers had not been deployed tasers, as is the case with many other officers here in the department.
Today, police tight-lipped about the investigation.
With many other officers here in the department.
Today, police tight-lipped. About the investigation. They have not released body cam video or revealed the officers' names, concerned for their safety.
I have watched the video of this tragic incident, and it presents difficult questions that must be answered.
Wallace's killing igniting hours of violence.
Multiple officers down.
30 officers injured, mostly by flying rocks and debris. A female sergeant hit by a pickup truck, still hospitalized in stable condition with a broken leg. Tonight, police confirm they've already stepped up their presence in anticipation of more possible unrest. And now, late word, the Pennsylvania National Guard is sending hundreds of its members in to help. Lester?
All right, Ron Allen in Philadelphia, thank you. In California, an epic battle against fire and wind, flames threatening homes, forcing the evacuation of almost 100,000 people. Miguel Almaguer is there.
Whipped by catastrophic winds for a second day, the wildfires in Southern California sound like a jet engine as they explode across Orange County. As massive walls of fire threaten homes, nearly 90,000 people were forced to suddenly flee flames.
This is a mandatory evacuation zone.
I thought the world was ending.
Tonight, authorities are investigating if electrical equipment may have sparked the fire.
It's not the power inside of these wildfires, but the wind that's causing all of this damage and so much destruction.
Facing some of the most dangerous conditions this year, 2 young firefighters were critically injured. Tonight across the state, 23 million are facing red flag warnings.
The winds were, they were whipping.
Powerful Santa Ana winds here in Southern California are finally starting to...
There are new hurricane warnings along the Gulf Coast, with Zeta expected to hit tomorrow. Al Roker, what's the latest?
Lester, Tropical Storm Zeta has hurricane warning and tropical storm warnings up for the central Gulf Coast. It will become a Louisiana sometime late Wednesday night, then rocketing into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, bringing heavy rain for the Northeast. Large destructive waves and rainfall amounts upwards of 8 inches in the lower Mississippi. Lester.
All right, Al, thank you. The leader of NXIVM, described by federal prosecutors as a cult-like group, was sentenced today to 120 years in prison. Keith Raniere was convicted of The leader of NXIVM, described by federal prosecutors as a cult-like group, was sentenced today to 120 years in prison. Keith Raniere was convicted of treating some of his followers as sex slaves. Over a dozen victims face Raniere in a court. Some of his followers as sex slaves. Over a dozen victims face Raniere in a courtroom in New York today. In just 60 seconds, the new screening recommendations for colon cancer. Back now with major health news about when people should start screening for a potentially deadly form of cancer. Senior medical correspondent Dr. John Torres joins us now. Dr. John, what's the change?
Lester, today a highly influential task force of doctors recommended that colonoscopies and other screenings start at age 45, which is lower than the current recommended age of 50. The reason? A sharp increase in younger people developing colorectal cancer, and the hope is to catch some of these tumors before it's too late. This is especially important for African Americans who have higher rates of colorectal cancer. The actor Chadwick Boseman was a prime example. This change is significant because it means insurances will cover colonoscopies starting at age 45. Right now, this is just a draft recommendation, but this panel's recommendations usually lead to their approval. Lester?
All right, Dr. John, thank you. In our series, America Under Pressure, we look at a crisis within the COVID crisis, how the isolation of seniors at long-term care facilities can be deadly. Here's Kristen Dahlgren.
When 90...
Кондуктор говорит на природу. Нет, о себе я не так думаю, что ты Нет, о себе я не так думаю. Плохо-то я тебе так. Да нет. Наоборот. Да. Она и говорит, вот это есть канал? Нет. Why the fucking not? Себя они так думают. О себе они так думают, наверное. Нет, что тебе на себя, на себя они так думают. Нет, нет. Себе так они думают. Да. Ну. Ничего хорошего. Это вообще, так сказать, это самое. Ссылочка. Типа пансиона, что ли, как-то понятно. Они там живут, что ли? Ладно, кстати, как это, ну ладно, поясни, что ты мне сейчас без ссылки. Ну вот, наоборот, типа этого. Ну так и нет. Это не касается. something better. When you will be old and you'll be yeah, something good for people as a result. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but for yourself and for people, for everyone. Yeah. Yeah. All together. Yeah. Да, solitude, solo, единство, короче, да. Да, don't torture, I don't know, find fun maybe. Different structures, yes. Yes, there is training, I think so too. Because there is training, there is something, yeah, fine. And by the way, you train to be, yes, yeah. No way, offside. Someone is dying.
28-year-old Chester Pesky died in a Minnesota nursing home last June. His death certificate read failure to thrive due to COVID restrictions.
He died of loneliness and a broken heart.
The gregarious veteran had been quarantined for months as the pandemic spread. His daughter Tammy could no longer visit, even as health aides noticed a change.
She just said that he wasn't himself and he was slumped over in a wheelchair.
She never saw him alive again.
It breaks my heart.
It's not an isolated incident. Measures meant to keep seniors safe are now being blamed for a parallel health crisis.
The stress of isolation for the last 6 months has prematurely aged some of the patients that really don't have that much time.
School of Medicine, там, по-моему, рая стоит, нет? Нет, мне кажется, где-то когда наоборот, каких-то районах.
Left.
On a Texas Facebook page, people have been posting before and after photos of their loved ones. Iris Parnell from June to October. Vivian Johnson in just 1 month. It's why at least 7 states can now classify some family as essential caregivers. That allows Becky McConnell to visit her mother-in-law in a Texas nursing home.
We're it for her. We're a friend, we're family, we're everything.
And now, she says, more essential than ever.
We are the ones who brought to their attention if she wasn't eating well or if she was sad.
We have patients who wonder why they can't go home for Thanksgiving, and did their family leave them? And is
Пошел заниматься, короче.